Your Honor, let's be realistic. My client spends more on his monthly dry cleaning than this woman earns in a fiscal quarter. To place a child in her custody is not just irresponsible, it is negligence. The words hung in the sterile air of the Manhattan courtroom like a guillotine blade. Elena gripped the oak table so hard her knuckles turned white, her eyes burning with unshed tears. She looked at her ex-husband, Mark, who was checking his watch, bored by the destruction of her life. They thought it was over. They thought money was the only law that mattered. But the man sitting quietly in the back row, clutching a sealed red envelope, was about to prove that seconds can change destiny forever. The fluorescent lights of the New York State Supreme Court Matrimonial Division buzzed with a low, headache-inducing hum that seemed to drill directly into Elena Vance's temples. She was sitting in courtroom 4B, a room that smelled of floor wax, stale coffee, and the distinct metallic scent of despair. Across the aisle sat her husband, soon-to-be ex-husband, Mark Vance. He looked immaculate. He was wearing a navy bespoke suit from a tailor on Savile Row, the kind that cost more than Elena's car. His hair was gelled to perfection, his posture relaxed, almost arrogant. Next to him sat his attorney, chaotic and shark-like, Mr. Julius Sterling of Sterling, Lockhart and Moore. Sterling was a man who didn't just win cases, he annihilated the opposition. And behind them, like a vulture perched on a fence, sat Beatrice Vance, Mark's mother. She was draped in a Chanel tweed jacket, her face a mask of Botox and disdain. She caught Elena's eye and offered a tiny, pitying smile that was colder than ice. "Mrs. Vance," Sterling said, his voice smooth but laced with venom. He didn't look at Elena. He was looking at the judge, the Honorable Arthur Harrison, an older man with bushy grey eyebrows who looked ready to retire. "We have reviewed your financial affidavit. It is concerning." Elena adjusted the microphone. She was wearing her best outfit, a grey pantsuit she'd bought at TJ Maxx 3 years ago. It felt cheap compared to the wool and silk across the room. "I'm a pediatric nurse, Mr. Sterling. I work hard. I provide for my daughter." "Do you?" Sterling picked up a piece of paper, holding it by the corner as if it were contaminated. "According to this, your net monthly income, after taxes and insurance, is $3,200. Is that correct?" "Yes," Elena whispered. "Speak up, please, for the record," Judge Harrison grumbled, not looking up from his notes. "Yes," Elena said, louder this time. "I work at St. Jude's. I save lives." "We aren't here to discuss your moral fortitude, Mrs. Vance. We are here to discuss mathematics," Sterling interrupted, pacing the floor. "Rent in Queens for your one-bedroom apartment is at $800. Utilities, roughly $200. Food, transportation, clothing. By my calculation, you have a disposable income of roughly $14 a month. $14. He let the number hang in the air. "My client, Mr. Vance, earns a base salary of $400,000, excluding bonuses, which last year totaled another $250,000. He lives in a 4-bedroom penthouse in Tribeca. He has a live-in nanny, a tutor, and a driver." Sterling turned to Eleanor, his eyes narrowing. "Tell me, Mrs. Vance, if your daughter, Lily, needs braces next year, which the orthodontist says she will, how exactly do you plan to pay for them with $14? I would pick up extra shifts," Elena stammered. "I always make it work. Lily is happy with me. She's loved." "Love doesn't pay for private school tuition, does it?" Sterling snapped. "Love doesn't pay for Ivy League preparation. Love doesn't ensure safety in a neighborhood where the crime rate is rising." Mark leaned over and whispered something to his lawyer, smirking. Sterling nodded and turned back to the judge. "Your Honor, This is an open and shut case of the best interests of the child. To leave Lily in the care of a woman who is one missed paycheck away from homelessness is not just unfair to the child. It is dangerous. We are moving for full sole custody, with Mrs. Vance receiving supervised visitation on alternate weekends. Supervised. The word hit Elena like a physical blow. "Supervised!" she cried out, standing up. "I'm her mother. I've raised her every single day while he was out networking until 3 a.m. You can't do this." "Sit down, Mrs. Vance," the judge warned, banging his gavel once. "Outbursts will not help your case." "But he's lying," Elena's voice cracked. "He doesn't want Lily. He just wants to win. He's never even taken her to the park on a Saturday." "That is because I am building an empire for her future." Mark spoke for the first time, his voice calm, deep, and sickeningly reasonable. He stood up, buttoning his jacket. "Elena, be reasonable. Look at you. You look tired. You look worn out. You can't give her the world. I can. Why are you being so selfish?" The gaslighting was masterful. For a second, Elena questioned herself. Was she being selfish? She looked down at her scuffed heels. She was tired. She was exhausted from working 12-hour shifts at the hospital, dealing with trauma and sick children, only to come here and be told she was worthless because her bank account wasn't overflowing. "I am not being selfish," Elena said, her voice trembling but gaining strength. "I am the one who holds her when she cries. I am the one who knows she's allergic to strawberries. I am the one who knows she's afraid of thunderstorms. You can't buy that, Mark." Beatrice let out a loud, theatrical sigh from the back row. "Oh, spare us the melodrama," she muttered, loud enough for the court reporter to hear. Judge Harrison took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Mr. Sterling, your argument regarding financial stability is noted and compelling. The disparity is significant." The judge's words sent a chill down Elena's spine. He was siding with them. He was looking at the numbers, not the people. In the eyes of the law, Mark was a provider, and Eleanor was a liability. "However," the judge continued, "we have one more witness listed on the docket, a character witness for the mother." Eleanor frowned. She hadn't called any witnesses. Her lawyer, a court-appointed attorney named Sarah Jenkins, who looked as overworked as Eleanor, shuffled her papers. Your Honor, we didn't call anyone. We couldn't afford expert testimony. It says here," the judge squinted at his screen, "Mr. Silas Thorne, is he present?" Silence filled the room. Elena's heart skipped a beat. She knew that name, but it was impossible. Mark laughed, a short, sharp bark. "Silas Thorne, the industrialist, the recluse. Your Honor, this must be a clerical error. The man hasn't been seen in public in 10 years, and frankly, my wife doesn't run in circles that include billionaires." "Ex-wife," Beatrice corrected from the back. Elena's mind raced back to 6 months ago. The private hospice job, the angry, bitter old man in the dark mansion on the outskirts of the city. She had been assigned to care for him in his final weeks when 5 other nurses had quit. He was mean, he threw things, and he refused to eat. But Elena had stayed. She had read to him. She had held his hand when the pain was bad. She had treated him like a human being, not a dying checkbook. He had died 3 months ago. She hadn't heard a word since. I knew a Mr. Thorne," Elena said quietly. "I was his palliative care nurse." Sterling rolled his eyes. "Wonderful. She changed the bedpans of a rich man. Does she think that entitles her to a character reference from the grave? This is a waste of the court's time." "Actually," a voice boomed from the back of the courtroom. The double doors swung open. The heavy wood groaned. Walking down the center aisle was not Silas Thorne. He was dead, after all, but a man in a charcoal grey suit that made Mark's outfit look like a costume. He was carrying a sleek leather briefcase and walked with the authority of a man who owned the building. He stopped at the gate, looked at Mark with utter disinterest, and then turned to the judge. "I am not Silas Thorne, Your Honor," the man said, his voice crisp and British. "My name is Arthur Pendleton. I am the senior executor of the Thorne estate, and I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but I was legally forbidden from speaking until exactly—" He checked a platinum pocket watch. 2 minutes ago. Mark scoffed. "And what does this have to do with my custody hearing?" Pendleton turned to Mark, his eyes cold. "Everything, Mr. Vance. Everything." The courtroom, previously filled with the drone of legal procedure, was now silent enough to hear a pin drop. Even the court stenographer had stopped typing, her fingers hovering over the keys. Judge Harrison leaned forward, intrigued. "Mr. Pendleton, this is highly irregular. This is a family court custody hearing, not probate court." "I am aware, Your Honor," Pendleton said, placing the leather briefcase on the defense table next to Elena. He gave her a polite nod. Elena stared at him, bewildered. She recognized him vaguely. He had been the shadow in the corner of Mr. Thorne's room on the day he died. The man who had stood by the window while she checked the vitals. "However," Pendleton continued, "the outcome of this hearing hinges on the financial stability of Ms. Elena Vance. Is that not the primary argument of the plaintiff?" "It is," Sterling snapped, standing up. "And unless you are here to tell us she won the lottery, her financial status is a matter of public record." "She is destitute." "Destitute?" Pendleton repeated the word, tasting it. An interesting choice of vocabulary. He clicked the latches of his briefcase. Click, click. The sound echoed like gunshots. "Mark!" Beatrice hissed from the back row. "Do something. This is a circus." "Your Honor, I object!" Sterling shouted. "This is an ambush. We have no discovery on this witness or whatever evidence he is presenting." "Overruled," Judge Harrison said, his curiosity winning over procedure. "If this speaks to the child's future, I want to hear it. Proceed, Mr. Pendleton." Pendleton pulled out a thick document bound in blue velvet. 6 months ago, Ms. Vance was assigned to care for Silas Thorne. Mr. Thorne was, as you know, a man of significant complexity. He had no family. He trusted no one. He believed the world was filled with parasites waiting for him to die so they could feast on his fortune. Pendleton looked directly at Mark and Beatrice. He was a good judge of character. Mark flushed red. "Watch it." During her time with him, Pendleton continued, turning back to the judge, Ms. Vance never asked for a penny beyond her agency wage. She never asked for favors. In fact, on Christmas Eve, when the agency couldn't send a relief nurse, Ms. Vance stayed for a 24-hour shift so he wouldn't be alone. She brought him homemade soup. She read him The Count of Monte Cristo. She treated a dying, angry man with dignity. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. She remembered that night. She had missed Lily's Christmas morning stocking opening because of it. Mark had screamed at her for days, calling her a bad mother for prioritizing a stranger over her family. "I remember that," Mark sneered. She missed Christmas. She abandoned her daughter to wipe an old man's face. "That proves my point, Your Honor. Her priorities are warped." "Context, Mr. Vance," Pendleton said sharply. "Context is key." He opened the blue document. Mr. Thorne passed away 90 days ago. His will was sealed with a strict trigger clause. The contents could only be revealed under 2 conditions. 1, 3 months had passed, or 2, Miss Vance faced a crisis where her financial standing was being used to oppress her. Pendleton held up the document. This morning, my firm was alerted via public court records that a motion was filed to strip Ms. Vance of custody based solely on income. The clause was triggered. "Get to the point," Sterling demanded, though he was sweating now. "The point," Pendleton said, "is that Silas Thorne was worth $4.2 billion. The number sucked the air out of the room. Mark's jaw literally dropped. Beatrice clutched her pearls. "And," Pendleton continued, "in his last will and testament, he left specific bequests. To his charities he left 10%, to his cleaning staff 1%. He turned to Elena. "And the remainder, the entire controlling interest of Thorne Industries, the real estate portfolio including the Manhattan Tower, the estate in the Hamptons, and the liquid assets totaling roughly $3 billion. He left to the only person who ever showed him kindness without asking for a receipt." Pendleton placed the document in front of Eleanor. "Ms. Vance, you are the sole beneficiary of the Thorne estate. As of 9 a.m. this morning, you are not destitute. You are the wealthiest woman in this courtroom. In fact, you are likely the wealthiest woman in the state of New York." The silence that followed was heavy, thick, and absolute. Elena looked at the papers. She saw her name, Elena Marie Vance. She saw the numbers, strings of zeros that went on forever. She felt dizzy. The room tilted. This is a joke," Mark stammered, his confident facade cracking like cheap glass. "It's a prank. It has to be." "I assure you, Mr. Vance," Pendleton said coolly, "Sterling and Cromwell doesn't do pranks. We do transfers of power." Judge Harrison cleared his throat. He looked at Elena with a newfound respect, and perhaps a little fear. "Ms. Vance, did you know about this?" "No," Elena whispered. I had no idea. He just gave me a book when he died, an old copy of Monte Cristo. Check the inside cover when you get home," Pendleton said softly to her. Sterling, the shark, was the first to recover. His eyes darted back and forth, calculating. He suddenly buttoned his jacket and bowed slightly toward Elena. "Well, this significantly changes the landscape of the financial affidavit." "I should think so," Judge Harrison said dryly. But Mark wasn't done. He was staring at Elena, and a new look washed over his face. It wasn't defeat. It was greed, a hungry, desperate greed. "Wait," Mark said, a smile creeping onto his face, a smile that made Elena's stomach turn. "Wait just a minute. We are still married." He turned to the judge, his confidence returning in a rush. "Your Honor, the divorce isn't finalized. We are still legally husband and wife. This inheritance, it's marital property. It was acquired during the marriage." Mark turned to Elena, his eyes gleaming. "Looks like we're rich, honey." Beatrice let out a breath of relief. "Thank God, it stays in the family." Pendleton let out a short, dry laugh. It was a terrifying sound. "Ah," the British lawyer said, raising a finger. "I was wondering how long it would take for you to get there. You see, Mr. Thorne was a paranoid man. He hated greedy relatives. And he hated, what did he call them? Gold-digging leeches." Pendleton turned the page of the will, which brings us to Clause 4, Section B, the bad faith provision. This is where the story gets truly interesting. The air in the courtroom had shifted. Moments ago, it was a place of routine cruelty, where the strong devoured the weak. Now it felt like a gladiatorial arena where the lion had just realized the gladiator was holding a bazooka. Mark's hand was still resting on the table, fingers splayed as if he were trying to physically grab the invisible billions floating in the air. "Marital property," he repeated, his voice gaining a frantic edge. New York is an equitable distribution state. Anything acquired during the marriage is subject to division. I know the law." He looked at Sterling, his shark of a lawyer. "Tell him, Julius, tell him half of that is mine." Sterling, however, looked less like a shark and more like a fish that had just spotted a net. He was reading the document Pendleton had placed on the table, his eyes scanning rapidly. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple, cutting through his bronzer. "Well," Sterling cleared his throat, his voice cracking slightly. "Technically, inheritance is usually considered separate property, provided it is kept separate and not commingled." "It's not separate if I claim it contributed to our lifestyle," Mark shouted, losing his composure entirely. "We are still married. That money belongs to the family." Arthur Pendleton didn't shout. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply adjusted his silk tie and smiled, a small, dangerous smile. "Mr. Vance, if you would let me finish regarding Clause 4, Section B," Pendleton said. Silas Thorne was a man who anticipated every eventuality. He knew that substantial wealth attracts complications, specifically spouses who suddenly discover a renewed affection once the bank balance increases. Pendleton read aloud from the velvet-bound document. In the event that the beneficiary, Elena Vance, is currently married at the time of this bequest, the funds are to be placed in a blind trust known as the Ironclad Trust. These funds are strictly designated as separate property and shall never be considered marital assets under any jurisdiction. Pendleton looked up. "But here is the coup de grâce, Mr. Vance. Listen closely." He continued reading. "However, if the spouse of the beneficiary contests this separation of assets or attempts to claim any portion of this inheritance while simultaneously engaged in divorce proceedings where they have disparaged the beneficiary's character or financial standing, they shall trigger the scorched earth provision." "The what?" Beatrice gasped from the back row. "Scorched earth," Pendleton repeated. "It states that if Mark Vance attempts to access these funds, the trust is legally mandated to immediately fund a forensic audit of Mr. Vance's own finances, business dealings, and tax records for the last 10 years, to be delivered directly to the IRS and the District Attorney's office." The color drained from Mark's face so fast it looked like he was about to faint. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. "A forensic audit?" Sterling whispered, horrified. He looked at his client. He knew exactly what kind of shady creative accounting Mark used to hide his bonuses. If the IRS looked too closely, Mark wouldn't just be broke, he'd be in prison. So, Pendleton closed the folder with a soft thud. "You have a choice, Mr. Vance. You can pursue half of Ms. Vance's inheritance and invite a team of federal auditors into your life by Monday morning. Or you can acknowledge that this money is hers, and hers alone." The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Even the court clerk was leaning over her desk, eyes wide. Mark looked at Beatrice. Beatrice looked away, clutching her Chanel bag, terrified of being implicated in whatever financial mess her son had created. Mark choked out. "I withdraw the claim. It's hers. It's separate." "Wise choice," Pendleton said. "However," Sterling interjected, trying to salvage the wreckage of his case, This windfall actually supports our motion for custody. Your Honor, Ms. Vance is a nurse. She has no experience managing this kind of wealth. It will be chaotic. It will be dangerous for the child. The child could be a target for kidnapping. My client, however, is accustomed to a high-profile lifestyle. He can provide the security and structure the child needs. It was a desperate pivot. They were claiming that being too rich made her unfit, 5 minutes after claiming being too poor made her unfit. Elena finally spoke. She stood up, her legs shaking, but her voice clear. "Your Honor," she said, 10 minutes ago, I was unfit because I couldn't buy braces. Now I'm unfit because I can buy a hospital? Which is it?" She turned to Mark. "You don't care about Lily's safety. You care about control. You just realized that if I have this money, you can't bully me anymore. You can't threaten to evict me. You can't threaten to starve me out in legal fees." She looked at Judge Harrison. "I am the same mother I was this morning. I love my daughter. The only difference is, now I can afford the best lawyer in the city." "Actually," Pendleton interjected smoothly, "you already have the best legal team in the city. My firm represents the estate, and by extension, you, and we are prepared to drag this custody hearing out for the next 20 years if Mr. Vance so desires." Judge Harrison rubbed his temples. He looked at Mark, who was sweating through his bespoke suit, and then at Eleanor, who stood amidst the wreckage of her old life, terrified, but standing tall. "The financial disparity argument is dismissed," the judge ruled, banging the gavel. "Ms. Vance clearly has the means to provide for the child. As for custody, given the extreme change in circumstances, I am ordering a temporary status quo. The child, Lily, remains in the primary physical custody of the mother. Mr. Vance retains his weekend visitation." "Your Honor," Sterling protested. "Enough," the judge glared. "And Mr. Vance, if I hear one whisper of you trying to manipulate this child to get to that money, I will hold you in contempt so fast your head will spin. Adjourned." The gavel banged. It sounded like freedom. Elena collapsed back into her chair, burying her face in her hands. She wasn't crying from joy. She was crying from the sheer release of adrenaline. Pendleton leaned in close. "Breathe, Miss Vance. The first battle is won. But the war has just begun." The hallway outside courtroom 4B was chaos. Somehow the news had already leaked. Perhaps a clerk had texted a friend. Or perhaps Silas Thorne's death had triggered automated alerts on Wall Street. Reporters were already gathering at the bottom of the courthouse steps, but inside the marble corridor, the tension was intimate and suffocating. Elena walked out, flanked by Pendleton. She felt like she was in a dream or a nightmare. She clutched her worn-out purse to her chest, the leather strap peeling, a stark contrast to the billion-dollar reality she now lived in. "Elena, wait!" Mark came running down the hallway, Beatrice trailing behind him, her high heels clicking frantically on the marble. Sterling was nowhere to be seen. He had likely fled to do damage control on his reputation. Pendleton stepped in front of Eleanor, acting as a human shield. "Mr. Vance, I believe the judge was quite clear." "I'm talking to my wife," Mark snarled, pushing past Pendleton's shoulder. He stopped in front of Elena. The arrogance was gone. In its place was a terrifying manic charm, the same charm he had used to woo her 7 years ago, the smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Elle," he said, using his pet name for her. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Look, things got heated in there. Lawyers, they make us say crazy things. You know I didn't mean it." Elena looked at him, really looked at him. For years she had seen him as a god, powerful, successful, untouchable. Now she saw the sweat on his upper lip, the twitch in his left eye, the desperation. "You told the court I was negligent," Elena said quietly. "You said I was a bad mother because I'm poor." "I was stressed," Mark pleaded, reaching out to touch her arm. "Business has been tough. I wanted Lily to be secure. But now we can be a family again. Real family. Imagine what we can do, Elena. We can travel. We can buy that house in the Hamptons you always looked at in magazines. We can fix this. Beatrice chimed in, breathless. "Elena, darling, you know how men are. They have egos. But we are family. Lily needs her father and her mother and grandmother. We should go to dinner, just us. Celebrate your good fortune." "Good fortune?" Eleanor laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. "Beatrice, last Christmas you gave me a gift card to a grocery store and told me to learn to budget better. You wouldn't even let me sit at the main table at your birthday party." Beatrice stiffened. "I was trying to teach you frugality. It was for your own good." "Step back," Pendleton warned, his voice low. Two large men in dark suits had quietly appeared from the elevator banks, Thorne's security detail. They moved like shadows, positioning themselves behind Elena. Mark saw the security and realized the power dynamic had permanently shifted. His charm evaporated. The monster surfaced. "You think you can handle this?" Mark hissed, leaning in, his face inches from hers. "You're a nurse, Elena. You wipe noses. You don't know how to handle billions. The vultures will come for you. And when you crash and burn, and you will crash, I'll be there to take Lily. You can't hide from me. I'm her father." "And I," Elena said, her voice shaking but louder this time, "am the one holding the checkbook. If you want to see Lily, you will be polite. You will be on time. And you will never, ever belittle me again. Because if you do, I'll buy your company and fire you." Mark recoiled as if she had slapped him. It was the first time in 7 years she had threatened him. "Let's go," Elena said to Pendleton. They walked toward the elevators, leaving Mark and Beatrice standing in the hallway. "You shouldn't have antagonized him," Pendleton said quietly as the elevator doors closed, shutting out Mark's furious face. "A wounded animal is dangerous." But it was admittedly quite satisfying to watch. "Why did Silas do this?" Elena asked, leaning against the elevator wall, her legs finally giving out. She slid down to the floor, not caring about her suit. "Why me? I was just nice to him." Mr. Thorne believed that the only people fit to have power are those who don't want it, Pendleton said, looking down at her with genuine sympathy. "But there is something you need to know, Elena. Something not in the will." The elevator dinged at the lobby level. The flash of cameras exploded through the glass doors. It looked like a riot outside. "What?" Elena asked, panic rising. "Mark isn't just greedy," Pendleton said, helping her up. "My investigators found something before we came to court. Mark's company, Vance Logistics, is a shell. He's leveraged to the hilt. He owes money to some very bad people. Loan sharks, Russian syndicates. We aren't sure yet. But he is drowning in debt." Elena's blood ran cold. "That's why he wanted full custody," she whispered. "He didn't want Lily. He wanted the child support payments. He wanted to claim her as a dependent to get more loans." "Precisely," Pendleton said. "And now that he can't get the money from you legally, and he can't use the child to get it, he's going to be desperate. And desperate men do terrible things." The doors opened. The wall of noise hit them. "Miss Vance! Miss Vance! Is it true you're a billionaire? Miss Vance, are you getting back together with Mark? Miss Vance, look here!" Pendleton guided her through the sea of flashing lights towards a waiting black limousine. For the first time in her life, Eleanor sat on plush leather seats that smelled of new money. But as the car pulled away, leaving the courthouse behind, she didn't feel rich. She felt hunted. She looked out the tinted window and saw Mark standing on the courthouse steps, staring at the limo. He was on his phone. He looked angry, yes, but he also looked terrified. He wasn't just fighting for greed anymore. He was fighting for his life. and that made him infinitely more dangerous. The transition from a cramped one-bedroom apartment in Queens to the penthouse of the Millennium Tower was not a dream. It was a disorientation. The elevator opened directly into a foyer larger than Eleanor's entire previous home. The walls were lined with original art, Warhol, Basquiat, Monet, and the view of Central Park was so clear it looked like a high-definition screen. But Eleanor didn't feel like a billionaire. She felt like a fugitive hiding in a palace. It had been 3 days since the court hearing. 3 days of silence from Mark. "Mummy, is this really our house?" Lily, 6 years old and clutching a ragged stuffed bunny named Mr. Hops, stood in the center of the living room, looking up at the 20-foot ceilings. She looked small, fragile, and infinitely precious. "Yes, baby," Elena said, kneeling to hug her. "For a little while, at least. Do you like it?" "It echoes," Lily whispered. "I like our old house. It smelled like toast. This place smells like nothing." Elena's heart broke a little. She stood up and looked at Arthur Pendleton, who was standing by the window, reviewing a tablet. He had practically moved in with them, setting up a command center in the library. "Mr. Pendleton," Elena said, "is there any word?" Pendleton didn't look up immediately. His expression was grim. "We've been monitoring Mr. Vance's movements. He hasn't gone back to his Tribeca apartment. He's staying at a motel in Jersey City." "A motel?" Elena frowned. "Mark wouldn't be caught dead in a motel. He's obsessed with image." "He is obsessed with survival right now," Pendleton corrected. "My sources indicate that the investors he owes money to have grown impatient. The news of your inheritance was unfortunate timing. They likely assume that since his ex-wife is a billionaire, he can pay them back." "Can he?" "No," Pendleton said. "Because of the trust. He can't touch a dime of your money, and he knows it, which means he is currently a man standing on a burning bridge with a gasoline can in his hand." Just then, Elena's phone buzzed. It was a new secure line Pendleton had given her, but the caller ID flashed a name that made her stomach turn. "Mark." Pendleton nodded. "Answer it. Put it on speaker." Elena's thumb hovered over the screen. She took a breath. "Hello? Elena." Mark's voice was ragged, slurring slightly. Background noise suggested he was outside, maybe near traffic. "Elena, you have to help me." "I don't have to do anything, Mark," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "You tried to take Lily away from me." "I was desperate!" Mark screamed, the sound distorting. "You don't understand who these people are. They came to the office, Elle. They broke my assistant's fingers. They gave me 48 hours. I need 5 million. Just 5. That's nothing to you now. It's pocket change." Elena looked at Lily, who was happily spinning in circles on the marble floor, oblivious to the fact that her father was begging for his life. "You told the court I was unfit," Elena said coldly. "You humiliated me, and now you want a bailout? If I die, it's on you," Mark sobbed. "Is that what you want? You want to explain to Lily that Daddy is dead because Mommy was too stingy to write a check? Don't you dare bring her into this," Elena hissed. "Friday," Mark said, his voice suddenly shifting from pathetic to menacing. "Friday is my visitation. The court order stands. I'm picking her up at 5:00 p.m. Elena froze. "No, you're not stable. I won't let you take her." "Read the court order," Mark shouted. "Unless I am arrested or dead, I have my rights. If you deny me visitation, I'll call the police. I'll tell them the billionaire mother is kidnapping the child. I'll turn the press against you so fast your head will spin. I'll paint you as the vindictive ex-wife keeping a father from his daughter." He hung up. Elena dropped the phone on the couch. "He's right. The order is still valid. I can't stop him. Pendleton walked over, his face unreadable. Legally, he is correct. If we violate the order, we give him ammunition. However, he pulled a small silver box from his pocket. Inside was a delicate charm bracelet with a small pink unicorn pendant. What is this? Elena asked. Military-grade GPS tracker, Pendleton said, embedded in the resin, waterproof, shockproof, and virtually undetectable. It transmits location, audio, and vital signs in real time to my security team. He handed it to Eleanor. Let him take her, Pendleton said. We need him to make a mistake. If he endangers her, even for a second, we can strip him of custody permanently. My team will be a shadow. He won't see them, but they will never be more than 20 feet away. And if he hurts her? Elena whispered. Mr. Vance is a narcissist, Pendleton said. He won't hurt her. She is his only leverage. He thinks she is his ticket to your bank account. He will treat her like a Fabergé egg. Elena looked at the bracelet, then at her daughter. It feels like using her as bait. No, Pendleton said softly. It is protecting the asset. And in this world, Miss Vance, family is the most valuable asset of all. Friday arrived with a grey, suffocating drizzle. The sky over Manhattan was the color of a bruised lung. Elena stood in the lobby of the Millennium Tower, holding Lily's hand so tight her own knuckles were white. Lily was wearing her new raincoat and the unicorn bracelet. Remember the rule? Elena asked, crouching down. If the bracelet beeps, I press the unicorn's horn, Lily recited, bored. She was excited to see her dad. She didn't know he was a monster. She only knew he bought her ice cream. Good girl. A beat-up sedan pulled up to the curb, not Mark's usual Mercedes. Mark got out. He looked terrible. He hadn't shaved in days, his eyes were bloodshot, and he was wearing a hoodie under a wrinkled blazer. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in a week. Mark, Elena said, stepping forward but keeping Lily behind her. You look sick. Maybe we should reschedule. I'm fine, Mark snapped, his eyes darting around the street, checking the parked cars, checking the windows. Just a rough week. Come on, Lilypad. Daddy's got a surprise for you. A surprise? Lily squealed and ran to him. Mark caught her, lifting her up. For a second, he buried his face in her neck, and Eleanor saw a flash of genuine pain in his eyes. He loved her. In his twisted, broken way, he loved her. Or maybe he just loved that she was the only thing in the world that didn't hate him yet. Have her back by Sunday at 6 o'clock, Elena said, her voice steely. Yeah, Mark muttered. He shoved Lily into the back seat of the sedan and peeled away into traffic. Elena watched them go, a knot of nausea tightening in her stomach. Target is moving, a voice said in her ear. She was wearing an earpiece connected to Pendleton's team. Heading east on 57th Street. Stay with them, Elena whispered. She went back up to the penthouse, but she couldn't sit. She paced the living room, watching the large screen where a red dot moved across a map of New York City. 5:30 p.m. The dot stopped at a McDonald's on 3rd Avenue. Audio feed came through, Mark asking Lily if she wanted nuggets. Normal. 7 p.m. The dot moved to the Holland Tunnel. Why is he going to New Jersey? Elena asked Pendleton. Cheaper hotels, Pendleton surmised. Or he's meeting someone. 8:45 p.m. The dot stopped at a dilapidated industrial park near the Newark docks. Elena froze. Why is he at the docks? That's not a hotel. Pendleton typed furiously on his laptop. He's meeting a man named Sergei Volkov, mid-level enforcer for the Brotherhood, loan shark. The audio feed crackled. Daddy, I don't like this place. It's dark. Lily's voice. Hush, sweetie. Stay in the car. Daddy has to talk to a friend. Mark's voice, shaking. Elena gripped the edge of the table. "Get her out of there. Pendleton, get her out." "Wait," Pendleton commanded. "We need evidence of endangerment. Listen." Through the static, they heard a car door slam. Then, muffled shouting outside the car. "You have money, Vance?" A thick Russian accent. I have better. I have the girl." Mark's voice. Elena stopped breathing. "The girl?" The Russian laughed. "I don't run a daycare. I want my 5 million. "She's the heir," Mark screamed. "Her mother is the Thorn beneficiary. She's worth billions. You take her. You hold her. Elena will pay anything. Anything. I can't ask her for the money. She hates me. But if you take the kid, she'll empty the vault." Elena let out a sound that was half scream, half sob. He was selling her. He was selling his own daughter to the mob to clear his debt. "That's it," Pendleton said into his microphone. "Team Alpha, move in, extract the child, neutralize the threat." On the screen, 3 blue dots that had been hovering nearby suddenly converged on the red dot. "Daddy, who are those men?" Lily's voice crying. "Get back!" Mark shouting. "No, wait!" Gunshots. Pop, pop, pop. The audio feed went dead. "Lily!" Elena screamed at the screen. "Lily! Vital signs are stable," Pendleton said, his voice calm but rapid. "Pulse is elevated but stable. The bracelet is still transmitting." Why did the audio cut? Interference, or the device was damaged. Pendleton stood up. "Get your coat, Ms. Vance. The helicopter is waiting on the roof. We are going to Newark." The flight took 12 minutes. It felt like 12 years. When the helicopter touched down in the empty parking lot of the industrial park, the scene was awash of flashing blue lights. Not police, but private security strobes. Elena jumped out before the rotors stopped spinning. She ran toward the black SUVs, arranged in a defensive circle. "Mommy!" Lily was sitting in the back of an SUV, wrapped in a foil emergency blanket, holding a juice box. She was crying, but she looked unharmed. Elena collapsed, grabbing her daughter, burying her face in the small, warm neck. "I've got you. I've got you. I'm never letting you go." "Daddy was yelling," Lily sobbed, and then the men in black clothes came and broke the car window. "It's okay," Elena soothed. "It's over." Pendleton walked up to them. He looked at the scene behind the SUVs. 2 men were zip-tied on the ground, the Russians. "Where is Mark?" Elena asked, standing up, her anger replacing her fear. Pendleton pointed toward the edge of the dock. Mark was sitting on a bollard, his head in his hands. He was surrounded by 3 of Pendleton's largest guards. He looked small, broken. Elena walked over to him. She told the guards to step back. Mark looked up. His face was bruised, likely from the Russians, or maybe the extraction team. He saw Elena and started to weep. "I didn't mean it," he blubbered. "I was just buying time. I wouldn't have let them take her. I swear." Elena looked down at him. She remembered the man in the courtroom who had mocked her salary, who had calculated her worth in pennies, who had tried to sell their child to save his own skin. "You are done," Elena said. Her voice was quiet, terrifyingly calm. "I am going to bury you, Mark, not with money, but with the truth. The recording of you offering Lily as collateral? It's already been sent to the district attorney and to the family court." Mark's eyes went wide. "Elena, please. Prison? I can't do prison. They'll kill me in there." "You should have thought of that before you tried to trade our daughter for your life," she said. She turned her back on him. "Elena!" he screamed. "Elena, I'm her father." She didn't stop walking. She walked back to the SUV, back to her daughter, back to the billionaire executor who stood waiting for her. "Take us home, Arthur," she said. As the car pulled away, Elena watched through the rear window as the real police arrived. sirens wailing, to take Mark Vance away in handcuffs. She thought it was over. She thought the victory was won. But as they drove back toward the glittering skyline of Manhattan, Arthur Pendleton's phone rang. He answered it, listened for a moment, and his face, usually a mask of British stoicism, turned purely white. He hung up and looked at Elena. "What?" Elena asked, clutching Lily. "What is it? Mark is in custody." "It's not Mark," Pendleton said. "That was the Swiss bank, the Ironclad Trust. Someone has accessed the account." "That's impossible," Elena said. "Only I have the biometrics." "I know," Pendleton whispered. "But the funds are moving. Someone isn't just trying to steal the money, Elena. Someone is initiating the doomsday protocol Silas set up. Someone is trying to destroy the company from the inside." "Who?" Pendleton looked at her, and his answer chilled her to the bone. "The access code used. It belongs to Silas Thorne's son." "Silas didn't have a son," Elena said. "He told me he had no family." "Apparently," Pendleton said, looking out at the dark city. "He lied. And now the son has come to claim what he believes is his. And unlike Mark, this man has the power to fight back." The ride to the Thorne Industries headquarters, a glass monolith piercing the night sky of Midtown Manhattan, was a blur of frantic phone calls and terrified silence. "Julian Thorne," Pendleton explained, his face illuminated by the passing streetlights. "Silas's estranged son. He was cut off 20 years ago. Silas erased him from every public record, every bio. He considered Julian his greatest failure." "Why?" Elena asked, clutching the sleeping Lily against her chest. "Because Julian didn't just want money," Pendleton said grimly. "He wanted destruction. He is a corporate raider. He buys companies, guts them, fires the staff, and sells the scraps. Silas knew that if Julian ever got control of Thorne Industries, he would dismantle it out of spite. That's why he left it to you. A builder, not a breaker." They arrived at the tower. The lobby was in chaos. Security guards were running toward the elevators. Alarms were blaring, a low, rhythmic thrum that vibrated in the floor. "He's in the server room," Pendleton shouted over the alarm. "The penthouse level. The Doomsday Protocol is a scorched earth program. It liquidates all assets, unencrypts all proprietary data, and donates the cash reserves to random offshore accounts. It's designed to leave the company a hollow shell within 60 minutes. How do we stop it?" "We can't," Pendleton said, guiding her into a private express elevator. "Only the executor can override it, and my codes have been locked out. He's bypassed the mainframe using a dead man's switch Silas installed years ago." The elevator doors opened on the 90th floor. The server room wasn't a cold, dark closet. It was a command center, walls lined with blinking blue lights and massive screens. And standing at the central console, typing furiously, was a man who looked like a ghost of Silas Thorne. Julian Thorne was tall, gaunt, with the same hawk-like nose and piercing eyes, but where Silas had been weary, Julian was electric with rage. "You must be the nurse," Julian said without turning around, "the one who changed the diapers." "Stop this," Elena said, stepping into the room. She handed Lily to a security guard at the door. "Take her to the office. Lock the door." She walked toward Julian. "You're destroying your father's legacy." Julian spun around. He held a tablet like a weapon. "Legacy? His legacy was neglect. He loved this company more than he loved his wife, more than he loved me. I am simply finishing what he started. I am freeing myself from his shadow." On the giant main screen, a progress bar was loading. "Asset liquidation, 82% complete." "You can't stop it," Julian sneered. The system requires a biometric scan from Silas himself to abort. And since he's rotting in the ground, this company dies in—" He checked the timer. 8 minutes. Pendleton stepped forward. "Julian, this is madness. You are destroying billions of dollars. You are destroying thousands of jobs." "I don't care about the money," Julian screamed, his composure cracking. "I want to erase his name from the skyline." Elena looked at the console. She looked at the blinking red cursor. Biometric scan. Required or override passphrase. "The passphrase," Elena whispered. "There is no passphrase," Julian laughed. "The old man never wrote anything down. He trusted no one." Elena closed her eyes. She thought back to those long nights in the hospice room, the nights when Silas would wake up screaming from pain, and she would talk him down. They didn't talk about stocks or bonds. They talked about regrets. They talked about books. She remembered the very last day. Silas had been too weak to hold his book. He had asked her to read the final chapter of The Count of Monte Cristo. "All human wisdom is contained in these 2 words," he had whispered, squeezing her hand with his last ounce of strength. Elena opened her eyes. She walked past Julian. She walked right up to the keyboard. "Don't touch that!" Julian lunged, but Pendleton intercepted him, shoving the younger man back. "Let her try." Elena looked at the prompt. Enter override phrase. She didn't type a code. She didn't type a number. She typed 2 words. The 2 words Silas had made her promise to remember, though she hadn't known why at the time. Wait and hope. She hit enter. The room went silent. The alarm cut off. The screen flashed green. Protocol aborted. System restored. Welcome, executor. Julian stared at the screen, his mouth agape. How? How did you know that? Elena turned to him. She didn't look like a victim anymore. She looked like the CEO she was about to become. Because I listened to him, Elena said softly. You wanted his money. You wanted his attention. But you never listened to his heart. He didn't hate you, Julian. He was waiting for you. He was hoping you'd change. That was his passphrase. Wait and hope. Julian fell to his knees. The rage drained out of him, leaving only a hollow, broken child. Security guards swarmed the room. They pulled Julian up. He didn't fight. He looked at Elena with a mixture of hatred and grudging respect. He really gave it all to you, Julian whispered as they dragged him away. He really did. Pendleton exhaled, a long, shaky breath. He adjusted his tie, though his hands were trembling. Miss Vance, that was remarkable. Elena looked at the screen, now showing the stable assets of the Thorn Empire. She looked at the window, where the city lights stretched out endlessly. I'm not Miss Vance anymore, she said, thinking of the man who had tried to sell their daughter and the name that tethered her to a life of abuse. She looked at Pendleton. Prepare the papers, Arthur. I'm changing my name back to my maiden name. And then, we have a company to run. The courtroom was different this time. It was bright, it was clean, and Elena was not sitting at the defendant's table. She sat in the gallery, watching. Mark Vance stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit. He looked older, grayer. The swagger was gone, replaced by the twitchy nervousness of a man who had learned the hard way that he was not the main character of the universe. Mr. Vance, the judge said, in light of the overwhelming evidence regarding the attempted kidnapping, the extortion, and the RICO charges involving the Russian syndicate, I am sentencing you to 15 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. Mark didn't scream. He didn't fight. He just slumped. As the bailiffs led him away, he looked into the gallery. He saw Elena. She was wearing a tailored white suit, sharp, elegant, powerful. Next to her sat Lily, looking happy and healthy, holding a new backpack. Mark stopped. He looked at them for a long second. He opened his mouth to speak, perhaps to beg, perhaps to apologize, but Eleanor simply nodded, a concise, final nod. Goodbye. The doors closed behind him. Eleanor stood up. She took Lily's hand. Is the bad man gone, Mommy? Lily asked, as they walked out into the sunlight of the courthouse steps. Yes, baby, Elena said, putting on her sunglasses. The paparazzi were waiting, but she didn't hide this time. She walked through the flashes like she owned the light. He's gone. They reached the black limousine. Pendleton was holding the door open. Where to, Madam CEO? Pendleton asked. Elena looked back at the courthouse, then down at her daughter, and finally at the skyline of the city she now helped shape. Home, Arthur, she smiled, and then, get me the file on the new pediatric wing we're building at St. Jude's. I have some ideas on how to spend a few $1 billion. The car door closed with a solid, expensive thud, and as the limousine merged into traffic, Elena realized that the billionaire inheritance hadn't saved her. It had just given her the tools to save herself. Elena's story proves that true wealth isn't just about what's in your bank account. It's about the integrity of your character. Mark thought money gave him the right to control others, and it became his prison. Elena used money to protect the innocent, and it became her sword. In the end, the destitute nurse was the only one rich enough in spirit to pass the final test. It's a powerful reminder. Be careful who you step on today, because they might be the one holding the keys to your future tomorrow. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, please hit that like button. It helps us create more dramas like this. Don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to see karma in action, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a twist. Thanks for watching.